I want to start this evening with CNN's Jim Sciutto, who is joining me on the phone on this breaking news. Jim, I just want to first get your take on hearing that it doesn't appear this is formal yet, but if Trump is leaning in this direction, and that is what all of our sourcing is indicating at this hour, what the significance of a Marco Rubio as a Trump pick for Secretary of State would be in your view?
For one, it very much, Kaitlan, puts China at the center of Trump's foreign policy. The combination of Rubio and Waltz, both of whom are big China hawks. Rubio's portfolio on China goes back years. He's drawn attention to China's trade practices. He's pushed for restrictions on selling advanced technology to China. He's highlighted China's mass incarceration and forced labor of Uyghurs in Xinjiang, as well as China's intelligence gathering inside this country. So he has a deep and long resume on China. And listen, it shouldn't be surprising, given that Trump himself, of course, has made China a target both of his national security policy, but also his economic policy, the discussions during the campaign of imposing significant tariffs on Chinese goods. This would bring to his team a Rubio and a Waltz, two individuals with history there and focus on China. I'll say this as well, that given the concern about some of Trump's foreign policy positions, particularly among Democrats, the outgoing Biden administration, but also some more traditional Republicans, I think it's safe to say that both Rubio and Waltz are not out there, as it were, right? That their positions on China are very common with other Republicans, but also, frankly, it's a bipartisan position right now in Washington, a far more aggressive China policy, both in terms of national security and trade. Their positions on Ukraine, for instance, Rubio has been a skeptic of additional aid going there. He, like other Republicans, has said it's time to bring the war to an end, but he is not a Republican who has praised Russia. He's not a Republican who has denied Russia's blame for the invasion, right? So even as he has been skeptical of additional aid, he's not from the wing of the Republican Party that has questioned whether the U.S. should have been there in any way at all before.
Yeah, certainly a different view in that sense. Of course, the question is what happens now and with what we've seen on the ground. Jim Sciutto, thank you for that. And on this breaking news, I also want to bring in CNN anchor and chief congressional correspondent Manu Raju, because Manu, as we were looking at this, I just want to note what Kristen Holmes is reporting on top of this. She says that she heard from a source this morning who thought Trump was leaning toward Rick Grenell, of course, who served as his acting director of national intelligence. Before that, the U.S. ambassador to Germany. We know Senator Bill Hagerty of Tennessee was also in the running for these two positions, though he seemed to have fallen out of the contention a few hours ago. Manu, though, when you look at this, if this is what Trump ultimately formally goes with, and a caveat there just because it's Trump, I imagine Rubio would have a pretty easy time getting confirmed in the Senate.
Yeah, no question about that, Kaitlan. In fact, if it were Rick Grenell, that could potentially have been a problem for some Republican senators here. Rubio is different, though. He's been a long-time senator. He's got a lot of allies in the Senate Republican Conference. He's one of those senators who has straddled both the Republican establishment world and the Trump MAGA world. And he has, despite of all of his criticism against Donald Trump back in 2016, he has very much aligned himself and been a chief defender of Donald Trump through his 4 years in office and on the campaign trail and the like. And his foreign policy views do align to some extent with the Republican establishment, but he also has broken with them as well. He did vote against the big foreign policy bill of this past year. That was a $95 billion aid package that included aid to Taiwan, aid to Israel, aid to Ukraine. He called it legislative blackmail, that bill. He contended that it should not have been all tied together. It should have done more should have went after border security issues as well, even as Ukraine was clamoring for that money at that critical moment earlier this year. So he has broken from a lot of his colleagues, including the Republican leadership, on that issue, but he is very much on Trump's side here. And assuming this pick goes through, I do expect him probably have no problems to get confirmed. But if he is confirmed to this post, then that opens up a vacancy in Florida for a Senate seat. This would give the governor there, Ron DeSantis, the ability to name a replacement to that post. So it would not affect the current balance of power right now. But I can tell you, without talking to too many Republicans at the moment, with this news just breaking, I will be talking to a lot of them tomorrow. I can expect many of them will be happy to hear this news if it does happen. Marco Rubio getting this major pick for Secretary of State, someone they believe can carry out America's foreign policy effectively on the world stage. Kaitlan.
Yeah, we saw his fellow Florida Senator already coming out and endorsing this idea on Twitter when New York Times first reported it. Manu, can I ask you that before you go, because we're also going to talk in a minute about the National Security Advisor pick and Mike Waltz, a Florida congressman. Now, 2 Florida lawmakers, it sounds like, are going to be inside the Trump administration. On that, with the House